out.
Great.
His fellow officer standing next to him, Sam and Linda, took out the shooter that day, is also with us. We want to just, first of all, take a moment to thank both of them for their service and their actions. Brian has a question for you tonight. He says he likes Governor Kasich, but he's still undecided. So, Brian?
Good evening, Mr. Trump. I have a question. In light of the Brussels and Paris attacks, one of the quickest knee-jerk reactions is the backlash against specific minority religious groups. This, in turn, brings about things that cause damage all over. In Milwaukee, you heard about the Sikh temple shooting. 6 people were killed. 99% of the men in the United States who wear turbans are actually Sikh and not Muslim. How would you suggest we help educate the public and not alienate these groups? And at the same time, how do we protect the constitutional rights of minority groups like the Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, and Jews while still addressing radical Islamization?
Well, Brian, thank you for the question. We have a tremendous problem with radical Islam, whether we like it or we don't. We have a president who won't talk about it. I mean, Ted was saying the same thing. We have a president that won't talk about it. Why he won't talk about it, perhaps only he knows. But it's a disgrace what's going on. We have a serious, serious problem. And when I called for a temporary ban, I thought that was a very bad thing for me to do politically, but I felt I should do it. And I didn't know that I would go up in the poll as opposed to down. I did that because I really felt there had to be something done. That was after the horrible San Bernardino, California situation, after obviously Paris, which was terrible. You know, we talk about Paris with the gun-free zones, and we talk about Paris with their strong gun laws, by the way. Nobody had guns except for the bad guys. If we would have had guns on the other side going in terms of Second Amendment, having to do if bullets were, and the same thing with San Bernardino. If bullets were going in the opposite direction, you wouldn't have had the problems that you had in those two places, that I can tell you. So I think we have to be extremely careful with our Second Amendment, and we have to cherish our Second Amendment, very important. But I would say this, when I called for the temporary banning, we have to look at it. We have a serious problem. I think you'll admit that, Brian. We have a very, very serious problem with radical Islam. And if we don't want to discuss it, and if we don't want to look at it, we're never going to solve the problem. We have to be extremely strong with ISIS. We have to wipe ISIS off the face of the earth so fast and so violently. We have no choice. We have no choice. And I was against the war in Iraq, okay? I am not a fast trigger. I'm exactly the opposite of that. We should have never gone in to destabilize the Middle East. But I will tell you this, we got out, Obama got us out very badly. Instead of leaving some troops and instead of giving a date, instead of, you know, the exact time, I would say this, though, we have no choice but to look at that. We have to be very, very vigilant, very smart, and frankly, Brian, we have to be very, very tough because it's only going to get worse. Thousands of people are being allowed into this country over short periods of time, coming supposedly from Syria. We have no idea who they are. We have no idea where is their paperwork. They have no paperwork. They have no identification. They're coming into this country, and it's going to be a big, big problem.
The other, though, part of Lieutenant Murphy's question was about protecting the rights of minority groups, of Muslims, of Sikhs, of Jews, and others inside the United States.
I want to do that also, and I do want to do that. But at the same time, we have to recognize we have a serious problem.
Well, let me follow up on that. You said you would agreed the other day, I think you said you agreed with Senator Ted Cruz's proposal in the wake of the Brussels attacks that law enforcement should, and I quote, patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized. I talked to him about this in the last hour. Bill Bratton, Commissioner, the Chief of Police,
who I like very much,
in your home city, Chief of Police under Giuliani, as well as now de Blasio again, also back out in L.A. He said about Ted Cruz's proposal, we do not patrol and secure neighborhoods based on selective enforcement because of race or religion. Mm-hmm. Is he wrong?
I think we have to be extremely vigilant in those areas. I think we have to look very seriously at the mosques. Lots of things are happening in the mosques. That's been proven. You look at what's going on in Paris, where mosques are being closed, okay? And we have to look very, very seriously.
There's a lot of Muslims in America who hear that. We got it saying, you saying we got to look seriously at the mosques.
Let me just tell you something. Okay.
And get worried.
In San Bernardino, people knew what was going on. These two people, he probably became radicalized through her, who knows? And frankly, right now it doesn't matter. But these two people went and killed their coworkers, et cetera, in their apartment or their house, in their place where they lived. They had bombs all over the apartment. They had bombs on the floor. Many people saw this. Many people, Muslims, living with them in the same area. They saw that house. They saw that. One didn't want to turn him in. He said, I don't want to turn him in because I don't want to be accused of racial profiling. He saw bombs all over the apartment, okay? It's just an excuse.
Do you trust
it's a legal
Muslims
excuse.
in America?
Do I what?
Trust Muslims in America?
Many of them I do. Many of them I do, and some I guess we don't. Some I guess we don't. We have a problem. And we can try and be very politically correct and pretend we don't have a problem. But Anderson, we have a major problem. This is, in a sense, this is a war.
I mean, special patrols in Muslim neighborhoods?
Excuse me. Nobody wants to call it a war. It's a war. There's a war. The difference is, it's not like you're fighting Germany or Japan where they have a uniform, we have a uniform, everybody has a different uniform. We don't know where these people are.
I want you to meet Jeff Johns. He's a financial consultant. He's said he is on the Trump train as of this month.
Well, I like him. I like him very much.
I knew you would.
I like him.
Thank you for coming to the great city of Milwaukee.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Trump, you have a high net worth in the billions of dollars, but many people don't think that you're a successful businessman. They refer to your inherited wealth and how it's just pace the average market index. Mr. Trump, what do you say to those people that do not think that you're a successful businessman?
I love the question because it's such lies. I started off in Brooklyn. My father was a builder in Brooklyn. Brooklyn had not a lot of value. Brooklyn was not a great place to be. I wanted to always go into Manhattan. My first deal was, and my first loan was $1 million from my father, which was a loan I had to pay him back. I did numerous deals in Manhattan. My father said, don't go into Manhattan. It's not our territory. We can't do that. It's not for us. I started off with a very small amount of money. And by the way, when my father passed away, remember, I have a total of 5 in my family. So we have brothers, sisters, split. And when my father died, by that time I had already built a great fortune. And my father didn't leave a great fortune. It was Brooklyn and Queens real estate. And it wasn't a great fortune. But now what they do is they build it up like, oh, he left Donald money. I started off, and you understand, you know the true answer because you're somebody that understands me and you understand where it started. I started off with $1 million, and now I'm worth over $10 billion. And I filed my papers with the election committees, with the federal election, and people in your world, in your profession, are down there or have been down there all the time, and they can't believe how great those papers are. Very little debt, some of the greatest assets in the world, and very importantly, tremendous cash flow. And I don't say that in a bragging way. I say that because that's the kind of thinking that our country needs. And I want to say this. Before my father died, he said, everything Donald touches turns to gold. It's absolutely, he was so proud of me, but I borrowed very little money from my father. What I did borrow, and the thing that really helped me with my father, was his knowledge. He was an excellent negotiator, he was an excellent builder. But he built in Brooklyn and Queens. There wasn't that much money in Brooklyn and Queens.
A lot of other candidates have released tax returns. You say you won't release them because you're being audited. There's some people who doubt you're even being audited or have been audited as much as...
I'll give you a letter to that. Would you like a letter? I'll give you a letter. I'll give it to you. Sure, absolutely.
Because some people have raised that as a doubt.
And only a fool would give a tax return.
So you can offer evidence that you are being audited or have been audited.
I'll give you a letter from the biggest firm in Washington that does my work for me.
All right.
Okay.
I want you to meet Robert Keitlinger. He's retired from the U.S. Army after serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's now a student at Marquette University, and he says he's undecided. Welcome. Robert?
Good evening, Mr. Trump. In your opinion, what are the top 3 functions of the United States government?
Say it again.
In your opinion, what are the top 3 functions of the United States government?
Well, the greatest function of all by far is security for our nation. I would also say healthcare. I would also say education. I mean, there are many, many things, but I would say the top 3 are security, security, security. We have to have security for our country so that we can continue to exist as a country. We are in danger. Thousands and thousands of people are infiltrating our country. We don't know who they are. There is a very vicious world. We're living in a very vicious world, and we're doing something that is against a lot of very smart people's wishes. I can tell you it's totally against my wishes.
So top 3, you're saying security?
Security. I would say, I say all top 3 are security, but healthcare, education would be probably 3. That would be top. and then you can go on from there. But the military and the secure country, so that we have a country, believe me, we've never been in a position, in my opinion, where our country is so vulnerable. Our military has been eaten away. When General Oriano left recently, a year ago, I was watching him on maybe your show, one of the shows, and he said that the United States Army, the United States military forces have never been so, and I think he used the word depleted, but basically he said they're exhausted.
So just to follow up, though.
That's a pretty sad commentary. And honestly, even though he was retiring at the time, and I had a lot of respect for him, good man, but even though he was leaving at the time, people shouldn't say that because you're giving the enemy ideas. But if I get in, our military will be bigger, better, stronger than ever before. It's the cheapest thing we can do.
So in terms of federal government role, you're saying security, but you also say healthcare and education should be provided by the federal government.
Those are two of the things. Yeah, sure. There are obviously many things. Housing, providing great neighborhoods. Because
aren't you against the federal government's involvement in education? Don't you want it to devolve to state?
No, I want it to go to state. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's not part of what the federal government's role should be?
The federal government, but the concept of the country is the concept that we have to have education within the country. And we have to get rid of Common Core, and it should be brought to the state level, absolutely.
And federal health care run by the federal government.
Health care, we need health care for our people. We need a good, Obamacare is a disaster.
But is that something the federal government should be doing?
The government can lead it, but it should be privately done. It should be privately done. So that health care, in my opinion, we should probably have, we have to have private health care. We don't have competition in health care. The problem that we have in our country is we don't have competition. It's made because the politicians, by the way, I'm self-funding. I am self-funding, so the healthcare companies aren't taking care of me, but they're taking care of everyone else. Wait one second. We don't have bidding. We don't have competition in healthcare, and it's a disaster. Obamacare, if you take a look at your premiums, they're going up 35, 45, 55%, and the deductibles are so high you'll never get to use it.
You always say you're self-funding.